15.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. I am your host, Dom Salvia. Got Jess PS over on the board. You can be a big part of this program anytime. Talk or text 855-752-4842. Jazzed as hell to introduce to you our co-host of the day, Matt Rothschild, a friend of ours. You may know him from the Progressive Magazine back in the day, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, and, of course, a Civic Media contributor. Matt, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks, Dom. It's always fun to be with you on Wednesday afternoons.
Yeah, man, makes the week go so much smoother. Lots going on in the news today. Matt, of course, the president-elect is getting his due, man. His folks are getting their senatorial, what do they call it? Advice and consent. Today, Pam Bondi, one of many, up talking to the senators. We're going to get into some of that as well. We got the inauguration coming up. Michelle Obama not attending, but apparently the other living presidents will be. We'll talk about that as well. Some of the entertainment has been released for the inauguration. We'll talk about that as well. But let's start out with the news of the day. Hamas and Israel have agreed to a ceasefire hostage deal. Certainly good news. But I got to tell you, Matt, as I looked at some of the details of this, it comes in phases. You know, there's different parts to it. And what concerns me about any kind of deal like this that's stretched out over time is that, generally speaking, time kills deals, man. You know what I mean? If you don't get the deal done, time kills all deals, as I say in sales. What's your? Of course, this is good news, no doubt about it. But it doesn't get it all done immediately. What was your initial reaction, Matt?
My initial reaction was great relief. I mean, there's been so much suffering on both sides of this. It was a good thing that we finally got a ceasefire anyway, at least for 42 days. I hope that will be extended. I hope the war is over. You're right to be skeptical. Who knows? The devil's in the details. We haven't heard from Netanyahu. The Israeli cabinet's got to approve it. Netanyahu has, in the past, moved the goalpost at the last minute and wrecked some of these negotiations. And Netanyahu and Hamas, let's remember, these two folks, the Hamas leaders and Netanyahu, had a sickening symbiosis where they didn't care how many innocent people got killed. Hamas leaders knew that when they attacked grotesquely on October 7th, killing 1,200 people, including 46 Americans. They knew then that Israel would respond tenfold or a hundredfold, and that's what's happened. And Netanyahu didn't care how many Palestinians he killed in response. And the number that I saw when I was doing a little research this afternoon was 46,000 Palestinians, including 18,000 children.
Oh my God!
And that's just horrifying. And my wife and I would be watching the news and just seeing these reports about starving Palestinians for the last several months. At least humanitarian aid's going to get through, and that's a relief. Biden deserves some credit here. I mean, he did, claim rightfully that he had proposed this deal back in May, that the outlines of the deal are the same as they were back in May. But my question is, what took so long? And how many people had to die since May because of this? I mean, I heard Blinken with my own 2 ears say back in June that they're on the 10-yard line. That's not a great offense to take 7-8 months to get 10 yards.
Right.
And all the people who died as a result. So those are basically my reactions on that. I saw Biden's press conference live. I thought he was pretty good, but kind of embarrassing too at the same time. No one else seemed to pick up on this, but I heard him mix up Hezbollah and Hamas in the first sentence.
Yeah.
I heard him mix up Kuwait and Qatar in the third sentence. Come on, man.
Some of the reporting from ABCnews.com. Now, this was negotiation between Hamas and Israel, with the United States, Egypt, and Qatar acting as intermediaries. The agreement will go into effect on Sunday, according to Qatari officials. The deal will take place in 3 different phases, each of which will last for 6 weeks, according to the officials. Phase 1 of the ceasefire has been finalized, while phases 2 and 3 are still in draft phase and will be finalized after the first 6 weeks are complete. So the first full details of what phase 1 is: Israel will withdraw to the east away from the densely populated areas, and more aid, as Matt mentioned, will be allowed into Gaza. Coordination is currently underway to open the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing to allow the entry of international aid into Gaza, according to Egyptian security sources. Israel forces will stay at the border. Now, 33 hostages being held in Gaza will be released, starting with women, children, and the elderly. Biden said that Americans will be part of the initial hostage release. 3 Americans are believed to be alive in Hamas custody. 4 others are believed to be dead. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners being held by Israel will also be released in exchange for the hostages, Biden said. We have some sound from Biden, but here's one of the quotes. During phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all areas of Gaza, and the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin, and innocent people can have greater access to these vital supplies.
What's left of those neighborhoods, though?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, what's
Holy
left of
cow.
Gaza? Hey, congratulations. It's like you're going home in California with the wildfires. What are you going home to? There's nothing left in lots
going
of
home
these
to
areas.
rubble.
Going home to rubble and ash. We do have some sound, Matt. Let's play it for the people. Just doing all the hard work. I mean, there's a lot. You work hard. I got to appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot of sound, lots of bits and pieces to kind of pull together to do this fine show. And Jess, you are a big part. Let's get to President Joe Biden on the Israel-Gaza ceasefire hostage deal. The framework Matt referenced going back to May. Cut number 1, please.
The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council.
Great, Matt. What took so long, man? I mean, it's good news, but certainly still frustrating. And I just got to say, Matt, I mean, I was born in 71. The hostages in the Middle East is like normal part of life. I mean, how long have we been dealing with hostages in the Middle East and peace negotiations in the Middle East, so on and so forth? This has been going on certainly since my lifetime, and I get it. These are long-term struggles and whatnot, but come on, it seems like it's on repeat, Matt. I keep hearing deals for hostages, deals for hostages, deals for hostages.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the 6-Day War back in the late 60s. There were a few moments over the last, holy smoke, 6 decades where it seemed like things would move forward when you had the agreement with Sadat of Egypt. Of course, then he got assassinated. Or when you had Yasser.
That assassination of Sadat was by like hardliner Israelis, right?
No, Sadat was the Egyptian military themselves turning their guns.
Yes.
I remember seeing. I remember seeing.
Yes.
Yeah. In college, I remember seeing the footage of the Egyptian military turning their guns on their leader. That was crazy.
Yes.
But yeah, Yitzhak Rabin, this was another hopeful moment when he and Arafat came to the White House. It looked like, things were moving in the right direction. And then Rabin got killed by a right-wing Israeli. And things went downhill after that. And this isn't the solution to the Israel-Palestine crisis that we've been dealing with at least since 67, and some would say since 48. But at least it's a good day for people who've been suffering for a long time to get a little relief and to get some humanitarian aid in there. But yeah, it's one of those things like, budget negotiations that it's just always there.
It is, and it's a good day today, and so in those days we relish those days and we remember and we hope we have more good days ahead. But unless there's some fundamental changes in mindset, philosophy, and whatever the case is in the Middle East, I mean, how long until this happens again? But let's not be negative on it. Let's hear some more from the President of the United States talking about the Americans that will be released. Cut number 2, please.
I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in phase 1 as well. And the Vice President and I cannot wait to welcome them home.
Well, that might have been the first time that Kamala Harris smiled there during that little brief press conference. She was stone-faced along with Secretary of State Blinken, who looked like he needs some sleep. They were standing next to Biden when he was giving that live press conference. I want to hear more from Kamala Harris about anything, including about this deal. I want to hear from her, as I think she's still the putative leader of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party just seems at a loss here as to how to respond to anything.
Seemingly organizationally, perhaps a little rudderless, Matt. We'll get into that as well. Talk about the DNC. There is a new candidate running for the DNC. But let's stay on right now. The deal between Hamas and Israel, ceasefire hostages deal. I think we're on cut number 3, please.
Indeed. This is what you've already read, but now we can actually hear it in Biden's own voice.
During phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all the areas of Gaza. And the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin, and the innocent people can have a greater access to these vital supplies.
And again, what's left of those neighborhoods. Let's play a couple more. The president talking about the deal today. Cut number 4, please.
There are a number of details to negotiate to move from phase 1 to phase 2, but the plan says if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue as long as the negotiations continue.
But that's a bit of an out, isn't it? I mean, we don't want to negotiate anymore. Ceasefire's over. So that's a concern right there.
And again, anytime you have a 3-phase, 18-week deal. I mean, 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. That's assuming things go as planned, as predicted. We're still talking a couple of months, and again, we got to take the positives as we can, but I remain skeptical. Time kills deals, and until every one of these hostages are home, until the Palestinians can return to what is left of their homes, and then what's next? Then, you know what I'm saying? Great. So we got past the last crisis, just like we did. Well, we haven't yet. The crisis before that, and the crisis before that, and the crisis before that, going back decades. We got to change something here. We got to change the trajectory of what's happening, or we will be having these conversations again in another couple of years, another 10 years. Folks, you're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. My guest host today, Matt Rothschild. We got Jess P.S. on the board. You folks on the lines, 855-752-4842. We're going to come back with more of the sound of President Biden on this historic day.
Not to put too fine a point on it, say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a point on it, say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Co-host today, Matt Rothschild, joining me at the table. We got Just PS on the board, you folks on the lines and the text as well, 855-75-CIVIC. We're talking about the details of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, a three-pronged plan, Matt. A little bit from the reporting, and then we'll go back to some of the sound from President Joe Biden today. We talked about phase one. Here's what ABC is reporting regarding phase two. Phase two, in 42 days, announcement of sustainable calm, permanent cessation of military operations and all hostilities to be implemented before the exchange of remaining Israeli male hostages, civilians, and soldiers for an agreed-upon number of prisoners in Israeli jails, and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. That's phase two in the 42 days. Phase three, once again, the remains and bodies held in the possession of both parties will be exchanged after identification. The reconstruction of Gaza will start and last for 3 to 5 years, including homes, civilian buildings, infrastructure, with compensation for all affected individuals under the supervision of several countries and organizations, including Egypt, Qatar, and the United Nations, and the opening of the crossings and allowing the movement of people and goods.
But it doesn't say, Dom, does it? And this, who's going to rule? Who's going to rule the Gaza Strip? Is Hamas going to rule it? Is Qatar, Egypt, and the United Nations going to rule it? The United States going to rule it? I mean,
the government coming out of,
right.
of the Gaza Strip right now. I mean, that's a great question. And
and Netanyahu has consistently said the war's not going to be over unless Gaza no longer runs, unless Hamas no longer runs Gaza. So, I mean, that's a big question.
They're huge question. And again, that's a concern. So lots of things to be ironed out yet, but we got phase one underway. So here is the president talking about the phase two exchange. Cut number 5, please.
When phase two begins, there will be an exchange for release of the remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, and all remaining Israeli forces will be withdrawn from Gaza, and the temporary ceasefire will become permanent.
President Biden speaking today. Let's play cut number 6, please, Jess.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony.
And for the sake of the Palestinians, too. Holy smokes, man.
For the sake of the world, folks. I mean, can't we all just get along? Didn't somebody say one time? I mean, how many times do we have to run this playbook? You know what I mean? This has been it's really tough for me to be positive about it when I feel like this is 10 years ago before that, 10 years before. I mean, this has been a continual historical turning of the page, and next thing you know, there's hostilities again, more hostages taken, so on and so forth, over and over, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying?
Let me just jump in there, because this is always the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank by the Israeli government has always bothered me on so many levels, on the moral level, on the legal level, on the humanitarian level, but also on the strategic level, because there is this concept of strategic procrastination. That's what Netanyahu called it.
Right.
We are never going to give these folks a decent state of their own, and we're just going to stall and oppress and oppress and oppress. But what is the strategy there? What really was the long-term strategy there? There was no long-term strategy, because so long as you're oppressing people, they are going to resist, and their friends and brothers and cousins are going to resist. So there was no real solution there in this strategic procrastination idea, and it came back and bit Netanyahu in the backside, though he was able to use it to his political advantage, and it certainly bit the 1,200 people who died on October 7th. Pretty hard, and it bit the Palestinian people pretty hard. I mean, there always has needed to be a settlement, a decent settlement with a decent Palestinian state, and I hope this ceasefire will lead to that. But I don't really see the outline for that right now.
Well, not with the incoming administration.
No,
who has said time and again that they don't believe in a multi-state solution.
Yeah, there's nothing in this that refers to a two-state solution. As mentioned, Matt, there's nothing in here that says how the Palestinians will govern the Gaza Strip. And if it's going to be Hamas, well, Netanyahu's not going to go along with that. The
Right.
question, we have a question. Let's throw this one out there and we can continue on. Folks, you can join us as well. 855-752-4842. How much credit should Trump get for this? Interesting question. Let's hear it. Cut number 7, please, Jess.
How much credit do you give to the Trump team for this deal? Trump is already taking credit for it.
Well, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. Exact. And we got the world to endorse it. Secondly, it's America's support for Israel that helped them badly weaken Hamas and its backers and create the conditions for this deal. And thirdly, I knew this deal would have to be implemented by the next team. So I told my team to coordinate closely with the incoming team to make sure we're all speaking with the same voice, because that's what American presidents do.
I mean, yes. I hope the incoming administration will abide by, follow through, and support this deal as well. Call me a little skeptical given the nature of the incoming administration. But if it was Biden with the incoming administration advice and consent, who knows? You got to assume that they know that there's going to be a change in leadership. So if that's the case, fine. Do we have any more? Is that the last one?
That's the last one. There was right at the end of that press conference, a journalist called out and asked, Mr. President, who deserves credit for this, you or Trump? And he had already walked away from the microphone. So he comes back just a little bit within range and goes, is that a joke? But it wasn't clean enough for me to cut.
Yeah, that was Biden saying, no, Trump doesn't deserve credit. I deserve the credit. But to me, who deserves the credit doesn't really matter. We needed to get to the ceasefire, and Biden does deserve a lot of credit for establishing this and trying to get it across the finish line. And he finally got it across the finish line. So I give him some kudos. I just wish it had happened 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, 12 months ago.
Wish we wouldn't have to be in the situation again. And if things don't change, we will be in the situation again in not too far a time. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Taking your calls next, 855-75-CIVIC.
30 seconds, Matt.
Treading water, my head goes underneath. They told me that I should breathe in.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you for being a part. You can join us 855-752-4842, Civic got Just PS on the board. My co-host for the day, Matt Rothschild, formerly of the Progressive Magazine Wisconsin Democracy Campaign and friend of ours. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. The topic as of the moment, the Israeli-Hamas deal, a ceasefire, hostage exchange, and some of the additional reporting here. Now, Trump is also taking credit. So we heard some sound of Joe
Shocking.
Biden taking credit. Trump's also taking credit. The Independent is reporting as such. The president-elect argued in a Truth Social post that the agreement expected to be formally confirmed later Wednesday could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November. Another quote, "A signal to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I'm thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be reunited with their families and loved ones." Let's see, a couple more of the quotes. The outgoing Biden administration described working tightly with the Trump team to seal the deal. Again, according to the reporting at The Independent. Earlier this week, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters that the Biden administration had coordinated very closely with the incoming Trump team to present a united message to all the parties, which says it in the American national security interest, regardless of party, regardless of outgoing or incoming administration, to get this deal done as fast as possible.
Well, I'm glad they worked together to get it done, if that helped getting the thing done, because it was important to get to a ceasefire.
Right? Yeah.
And and maybe Trump's got something there, because he said, if this thing isn't settled before I get in, and the Gaza Strip is all hell's gonna break out in the Gaza
all hell's
Strip
gonna
or
break
something.
loose, right?
So I mean, there is that too going on. But I'm still struck by the thing that you're struck by, Dom, which is this really going to lead to a grand solution where we don't have to deal with this problem every year, every 2 years it blows up in our face or in the faces of the Palestinian people or the Israeli people? Because you've got Governor Huckabee, who's going to be U.S. ambassador to Israel, who believes in a greater Israel, doesn't believe there is such a thing as the Palestinian people. If the Palestinian people don't get a state of their own, there are going to be Palestinians, whether they're living in Palestine or not, who are going to be so outraged that, their family's been, dispersed and their uncles have been killed or their sons have been killed, that, they're not going to give up this. They're going to be like, Japanese after World War II who are hiding out in the islands still fighting the war. And is that something we want, especially with, all sorts of weapons that are possible for people to get a hold of?
Yes, and again, this solves the immediate crisis, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? And that's a concern. The New York Times has a headline, Matt, Gaza hostage deal could come as Trump takes office in echoes of 1981. The subheadline, dozens of American hostages held at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran for more than a year were freed just as Ronald Reagan was inaugurated.
Well, that suggests that Trump was telling Netanyahu not to reach a deal while Biden was, or Kamala Harris was running for president. Because
that sounds familiar.
That's the direct analogy.
That would be the analogy, because as it's understood, as I understand history, one of the headwinds for Carter when he was negotiating and trying to get the hostages released was that the Reagan campaign behind their back, and I would say illegally, were also courting the Iranians and telling them that don't release the hostages until Reagan gets in, because, of course, that would be a boost to the Carter administration right at the tail end of an election. And so if that were to be the case, and it seemingly history would indicate that the Reagan the Reagan campaign purposefully delayed the release of American hostages for political reasons. That is not what happened here. What happened here, according to the reporting, is that this was a framework set in place by the Biden administration dating back to May. As far as I know, the Trump campaign has not been in contact. There's no reporting with Netanyahu saying, don't do this. And apparently the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration, at least the transition team, have been working together to show a unified face on this as it pertains to the United States national security, which I think is a positive thing. So I think that headline is a little misleading, Matt. I don't think it's analogous at all.
Well, unless they've got some information that the Trump folks were telling Netanyahu to drag his feet, and Netanyahu was dragging his feet. That's a fact. I mean, he would continually, make last-minute changes that would scuttle the agreement after May that looked like it was about to happen and never happened until now. But I don't have the facts behind that. I mean, it does make me raise an eyebrow and wonder whether it was happening. But, I'm a trained journalist. I don't want to go off saying it happened when I don't have any facts that say it happened.
There's no indication that was, in fact, the case. 855-752-4842. Let's get to it. CJ perhaps has a different opinion on this topic. Hey, CJ, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Matt and Dom. Thanks for taking my call. Well,
hey, CJ.
Just broke pretty much everything down, but the irony that this has with the Carter administration with Iran, and for 444 days tried to negotiate a release, and on the day of Ronald Reagan and peace through strength, on his inauguration day, they were released because just like Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump is a man of his word, and he said, if you don't release them before I'm inaugurated, all hell will break loose. You've got the tape of that. I'm sure Jess can pull that up. And that was while Robert Lighthizer was standing next to him. And Biden claims for 8 months that he's negotiated this deal. Well, isn't it funny? You can look at the chronology. This is peace through strength and a Republican president, and it's now following the weakest president in America's history.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, CJ. Listen. I'll let you go. Now allow me to retort if I may, and Matt can jump in here as well. I just explained that why this is not the same, right? The Reagan campaign was secretly negotiating with Iran to not have the hostages released. Do you accept that as fact, CJ?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, then maybe you should do a little research on that, my friend. It was not about Ronald Reagan coming in and then all of a sudden the Iranians all being so scared. It was that Reagan was reaching out behind the Carter administration's back to tell the Iranians to hang on to those hostages for political reasons, to make Reagan look strong so people like you would believe that. So basically, Ronald Reagan negotiated with terrorists to keep American hostages hostage longer than they perhaps should have been. Is that new news to you, CJ?
You don't think that it was like the threat that he gave the Taliban when he handed them the
I'm asking you, is that news to you, CJ? Is that new information for you about Ronald Reagan's dealing with the Iranian during the hostage crisis? Did you know that, CJ, or is that new to you?
October 7th.
So he didn't know that. Matt?
I mean, my understanding is that Reagan sent his designee to be CIA director, William Casey, to talk to the Iranians prior to the election, tell them, slow walk this thing. Don't make a deal with the Carter administration. And that was a treasonous thing to do. It was an illegal thing to do. No one has the right to negotiate for the United States other than the executive, the chief executive and his people. and think of the hostages who had to stay there longer because of the shenanigans that Casey and Reagan were pulling just to make sure that they got elected. I mean, that was political tricks of the worst variety.
Of the worst kind. If it were to be analogous, it would be that Donald Trump would have delayed the release of this deal until after he was president. Like, hey, make this happen on day one. Make it happen next week. Not during the Biden administration. But perhaps if the reporting is accurate and the Biden team and the Trump team were working in unison for this, great. I'm fine with that. National security does not know politics. Our enemies are happy to see us at each other's throats, no doubt. But we're talking about national security. That's a national security for everyone. Now, that aside, and folks, you can join us as well, 855-752-4842. My concern, as I have articulated about this deal, it's a 3-phase deal, 42 days, 42 days, 42 days. Time kills all deals. And the phase 2 and phase 3, while there is an outline and has not yet officially been established. If someone and that won't be established, it will not happen before Monday. So if all you folks out there, all the megas out there that say this is all because of Donald Trump's strength, okay, you can have that. I disagree. I think it's a combination, if at best, or primarily the current administration. But if you want to throw in the all hell will break loose threats, fine. Then ponder this: if phase 2 and phase 3 fall to the wayside, is that because of the weak leadership of Donald Trump? Are you going to take responsibility for those phases falling apart? Is that going to be Donald Trump's fault? Will that be his foreign policy blunders if phase 2 and phase 3 and 42 days and 42 days after that don't come to fruition? Are you megas, CJ, are you conservatives going to say that's Biden's fault, or is that Trump's fault? You know what I mean? Who's taking responsibility?
And on the flip side, I mean, Biden does deserve credit for helping Israel deflect the Iranian incoming missiles and made Iran's military look bad. Netanyahu, and I hate to give him credit for anything, but he militarily did totally degrade not only Hamas but Hezbollah, and so Hamas is in a totally weakened position here. And when you're in a weak position, and you've got to at some point negotiate an end.
855-752-4842. Annie from Watertown, you will be next. Welcome, Annie. What do you got for us?
Yeah, that Iran thing, that was pretty well established by now. In fact, there was an election while the hostages were still there, and like 96% of the votes went for candidates that did back releasing them, and that was where the Iran-Contra and everything, Reagan's people, was it Casey, said, hold on to them, and we'll give you parts for the American parts.
That was another Iranian. It's amazing how the strong Republicans never deal with terrorists until they deal with terrorists.
It all started there, really, and now even just recently in the past year or so, one of the guys on the plane to Iran came out. So there's no doubt about it anymore. But this deal with Hamas, Gaza, the Biden administration, of course, said there's going to be a transition here, so he had somebody, he asked Trump to send somebody, and he sent a real estate guy. So Trump knew dang well that there had been an agreement approaching being, settled on, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That's why he could come out and say, make this big threat and then take the credit and make it look like, and people like CJ will just fall for that.
Good point. I mean, certainly, Matt, Trump saw the writing on the wall. They know there were ongoing negotiations. This has been going on for, well over a year, at least back to May. So it's not a big stretch for someone like Donald Trump to make a claim like that in order to perhaps garner some credit for it.
Yeah, and let's be real. I mean, Trump, claims credit for the sun coming up in the morning. So that's just who he is.
Well, and that's the thing, though. If this deal, if phase 2 and phase 3 don't come around, that's going to be entirely under the Donald Trump administration. And hopefully that does happen. Hopefully we have a longer term solution where we're not back here in another 3 to 5 years talking about the next Israeli Hamas or whatever terrorist organization will be, claiming hostages at that point. I mean, things need to fundamentally change on the ground in people's minds and people's hearts, and people have a right to self-determination. Until that happens, I mean, how would you act if you had the boot of somebody else on you all the time, regardless of what your father or grandfather may have been involved in? I know I'd be fighting back. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show. Join us 855-752-4842. Lots of texters, lots of callers. We'll get to you next.
Do you hear us now? Touch from my throat, strain my blood, break my bones. We're not in control. In the fight of our lives, you're ready for golden. So keep it gay, 'cause we're coming for the throne.
"30 seconds."
Started 37 blowing out of the sky. What you think that the members of the midnight round? Play your ear, probably fail. Yeah, wanna find just a little, try to get ahead. Play your ear, probably fail.
Yeah! Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. That's not CCR, but it's a good song. Love the rock and roll version. Thank you, Jess. Got Matt Rothschild joining me today. You folks on the phones and the text as well, 855-75. Civic Patrick from the 608. Called Iran-Contra arms for hostages. Yes, there were, during the Reagan years, Matt, I mean, if I recall, and I remember when Reagan came on. I was just a wee lad. Born in 71. I was, 8, 9 years old. And here comes
Making me feel bad, Don.
this slick old man coming in with the promises of a shining city on a hill, and his strength, gets the Iran hostages released. Well, we talked about that already. That was a backdoor deal to screw Carter. And in doing so, they're keeping the hostages there for a little longer than they needed to be. But that aside, there was also the Iran-Contra deal, which happened later, Matt. That had nothing to do with the initial hostage crisis during the 1980 election.
I was in Washington, D.C., working for Ralph Nader when Reagan was elected, and I saw the Reagan crew come to town, and the ladies in all their long fur coats and the right-wingers driving the big cars, and the arrogance and swagger of the Reagan folks, and it was really obnoxious to watch. And then to see this kind of rosy interpretation of Reagan that's happened over the last 30 years, 40 years, people forget about the treasonous actions of William Casey and the Iranian hostages. People forget about the totally illegal Iran-Contra hostage deal. There was a embargo on aid to the Contras. The Contras were trying to overthrow the Sandinista government in Nicaragua, the socialist government in Nicaragua. The United States had been funding them, and they were committing gross human rights abuses. So there was a law passed that said the United States can't fund the Contras. Well, Reagan wanted to continue to fund the Contras, and he found a way to do it illegally by getting helping, letting the Iranians fund the Contras and reimbursing the Iranians. That was the Iran-Contra deal, and Oliver North and all those folks. But that was another reason I always thought, that Reagan should have been impeached. Or prosecuted. And I remember when Reagan died, I was contacted by a local reporter saying, "What's your feeling on Reagan?" I said, "Well, he's a war criminal, and some friends of mine I was playing basketball with, including some Republicans, were just horrified because everybody else was saying pious things about what a great man he was. And it was just a bunch of BS.
Well, and it's not that people forget, Matt. Some people just don't know. They don't
Right.
know. And I'm not knocking CJ specifically in this case or those folks that are unaware of this particular part of history. And I didn't know it when I was 9 years old, and so of course I looked up and like, oh, this guy, man, what strength. And what kind of politics do you know when you're 9 years old? And I grew up out in the country, and so when you're on the playground, with the other 9-year-old kids in 4th and 5th grade, oh, no one likes Carter. Carter sucks. Well, you don't even know. You don't even know what inflation means. You know what I mean? So but I got older, Matt. I grew up, and then I started reading a little bit and realized, oh, damn. Well, that was some shady stuff, and that never should have happened. And so the twist for all this, what did Reagan say? Oh, in my heart, I didn't do anything wrong, and my heart was in the right spot. Something along the lines. He basically played it off. But now I know that we did do it. Yeah, you did it. You did it. And folks still want to give Ronald Reagan a pass as some high and mighty, jelly bean eating. I mean, look at the worshipfulness of Scott Walker with Ronald Reagan, man. I mean, it's weird. It can only be surpassed perhaps by the Trump infatuation with these Republicans, man.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a cult, but it was a total whitewashing of history. And then there were a couple of generations of young Republicans like Walker who idealized and idolized Ronald Reagan, and now, and maybe there's something psychological about the need to idolize someone, because of course Trump's got a lot of people idolizing him right now.
855-752-4842. I had to pull up the quote a few months ago from Ronald Reagan. Right, this is what he said back in the day. A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions tell me that's true, but the facts and evidence tell me it's not. What the hell does that even mean?
In my heart,
I
did not cheat.
That's right.
But the facts and the evidence of what occurred in the bedroom, well.
Baby, I love you. I swear I didn't, but apparently you caught me, so I guess I did. But my heart tells me I didn't cheat on you. 855-752-4842. I mean, that's what the man said. I remember that quote when he said it live. I was watching it. Disgusting.
Yeah. It's crazy what you can get away with a line like that.
Get away with, man. You can get away with trying to overthrow the government. I mean, this was small potatoes back then. Reagan wasn't shooting high enough. Let's get one more caller in here. Jim from Appleton, you are up. Welcome. What do you got?
Hi, guys. I just wanted to remind you that midsummer, I believe it was late July, Mr. Netanyahu took a trip to Mar-a-Lago and met with Trump for a day. Not that I'm saying that he was told school play the game, but yeah, let's not forget that did happen.
Yeah, and thanks for the call and the reminder, Jim. Yeah, it was a little sketch. He wasn't the only world leader to go visit and kiss the ring down at Mar-a-Lago. Matt, we got 30 seconds. What do you think? Was there anything that came out of that meeting, in your opinion, based on what we're seeing today?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen the facts, and the fact that he was there isn't conclusive that there was a little deal made. I wait to see more reporting on it. If there was, I wouldn't be shocked. Nothing would shock me about Trump.
Nothing shocks us anymore. Folks, come back with us. Pam Bondi talking to the Senate today. We're going to get to that as well. 855-752-4842.
Hey, Matt, you still there? Matt, you step away for a minute? I think so. 30 seconds.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. I am your host, Dom Salvia. Thank you for sticking around with us. Just PS is on the board. Our co-host of the day, Matt Rothschild. You might know him from the Progressive Magazine, formerly of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, a Civic Media contributor and friend of ours. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's always fun, especially on a big news day.
Big news day. We're going to move on from the Gaza ceasefire hostage deal. We had lots of Trump folks that are getting their Senate hearings today, the least of which was Pam Bondi. I think there's like 5 or 6 today, or a lot going on today. So we got a full schedule. So we gotta pick and choose, and I think Bondi is the one of import. I did see the Secretary of State candidate
Rubio,
Senator Rubio from Florida. They're all going to skate through.
That's true.
I saw a statistic of how many candidates get rejected, and it was like 3%. And like the candidates for the party in power hasn't been rejected like 100 years. I mean, so these folks are generally going to slide through. Pam Bondi, she was a former attorney general for the state of Florida. Also did some other work overseas, representing lots of folks. So, person's got to make some money. Don't hold that against them. Matt, did you happen to see the testimony today? And
yeah,
go ahead.
I saw about an hour and a half of it. One funny thing was that she said, "Make America safe again." I swear to God, at least 35 times. Might have been more. You'd have to check the transcript. But it got really silly. And then one of the worst things, a couple really horrible things. One, she wouldn't flat out say that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Even to this day, if you're, a Trump sycophant, you cannot admit that Trump lost that election. Otherwise, he'd dump you. And it's just ridiculous that she can't admit that 2 + 2 is 4 and that Biden won it fair and square. She talked about, something going on in Pennsylvania. She visited Pennsylvania, and then she couldn't cite any specifics about what was going wrong in Pennsylvania. Again, I heard there were some bad things going on there, or I saw bad things. Well, what were the bad things? And there's nothing there. That was crazy. And also about the effort that Trump made, especially in the notorious conversation with the Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger. She said she'd never even heard that actual conversation. That was just
audio.
Let's
play that because it's totally unbelievable.
It is absolutely unbelievable. And then the hill you're going to die in is one is what that Biden is the president. No, did he win the election? No, he's the president. I mean, it's such splitting hairs, and goes to show you, if you have someone in that position that is, let's call it, afraid or not willing to acknowledge that in those very specific terms, of course she's going to bend to the will of Donald Trump. And that's the takeaway. That's what all that means. I was struck, and I did get to see parts of it off and on. Chuck Grassley, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. All right, so I'm not going to knock a guy who's 91, 3 months plus old. Not 91,
he showed every second of it.
Come on, man. Move along, dude.
Oh, it was just
live your life, be with the great grandkids. I mean, whatever it is. But chairing this committee, okay, people can do it. I guess he's going to do it. He did it. But what he did, what he said, the way he spoke about the Department of Justice being weaponized, and talked in terms like Donald Trump did absolutely nothing wrong ever. And this was all just a basically, and he didn't say the words that I heard, but essentially agreeing with Trump. This is a witch hunt. This is weaponized justice. Never should happen. Oh, there you go. He went through his wife's underwear drawer. I mean, Yeah, you know what? When the guy's been saying for over a year, yeah, you have all of our secret documents, and he's been lying the whole time. His lawyers go out there and say, yes, you have everything. And it come to find out, no, you actually don't. And they actually have to go through finally because the guy's a lying bastard and won't give the stuff back. They got to go and find it. And we saw the pictures, not necessarily of the drawers, but we did see the boxes, hoarded in the bathroom, stacked up. In the tub shower, stacked up past the curtain. We saw that happen.
To say nothing of January 6th. I mean, I read Jack Smith's whole report. I mean, the evidence is a mile high here that this guy committed crimes that he should have been prosecuted for if it weren't for the U.S. Supreme Court giving him a get out of jail free card. And they act like nothing was happening, like that. It was all just, a political, they were vendetta against Donald Trump when, he was the first president who tried to overthrow our government.
And Matt, I want to we'll perhaps reflect on the Jack Smith report, but let's stay on target. Maybe we'll get to that after this. 855-752-4842. Just doing all the hard work.
Yeah.
I just sit here and look good. Just cuts it all up. Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. Pam Bondi at the Senate Judiciary Committee. Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois. And I got to give all these folks. We got sound from Dick Durbin, Senator Mazie Hirono from Hawaii, and newly appointed Senator Adam Schiff from California. Now, Schiff maybe went off the, I don't know if he went off the rails. He's very Adam Schiffy. But I thought the folks were very measured in their discussions. And I want to get your take on it as well. Dick Durbin starting out. This one's a little bit longer, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, but it gives you the flavor. And the very, very important question, the one that I wanted answered when we found out that Pam Bondi was going to be the candidate for Attorney General. Who won the 2020 election? Senator Durbin asking Pam Bondi. Let's hear it, Jess.
At issue, I believe, in this nomination hearing is not your competence nor your experience. At issue is your ability to say no. More than any other cabinet official, the Attorney General has to be prepared to put the Constitution first and even tell the President of the United States you're wrong. The political danger and personal costs of such a decision are well documented. You have only to ask former Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr, whom Donald Trump sacked for lack of loyalty. And so I have three basic questions I'd like to ask you. Most Americans believe that central to the peaceful transition of power in a democracy is the acceptance of the results of an election. To my knowledge, Donald Trump has never acknowledged the legal results of the 2020 election. Are you prepared to say today under oath without reservation that Donald Trump lost the presidential contest to Joe Biden in 2020?
Ranking Member Durbin, President Biden is the President of the United States. He was duly sworn in, and he is the President of the United States. There was a peaceful transition of power.
Really?
President Trump left office.
Really?
And was overwhelmingly elected in 2024.
Overwhelmingly?
Do you have any doubts that Joe Biden had the majority of votes, electoral votes necessary to be elected president in 2020?
You know, Senator, all I can tell you as a prosecutor is from my firsthand experience. And I accept the results. I accept, of course, that Joe Biden is president of the United States. But what I can tell you is what I saw firsthand when I went to Pennsylvania as an advocate for the campaign. I was an advocate for the campaign, and I was on the ground in Pennsylvania, and I saw many things there. But do I accept the results? Of course I do. Do I agree with what happened? And I saw so much, no one from either side of the aisle should want there to be any issues with election integrity in our country. We should all want our elections to be free and fair, and the rules and the laws to be followed.
I think that question deserved a yes or no. And I think the length of your answer is an indication that you weren't prepared to answer yes.
No, she's not prepared to answer yes. She will never answer yes. And to her point, again, I've been a little bit critical. It's easy for us here after the fact. Oh, you believe that we should have free and fair elections. Was the 2020 election a free and fair election? You know what I mean? Come on. A little bit more from Dick Durbin. again, this is the Raffensperger question. Hey, when Trump was on the phone to Georgia election officials, you got to find me 11,780 votes. Oh, the answer, wholly insufficient. Let's play cut two, please, Jess.
Totally unbelievable.
Have you heard the recording of President Trump on January 2nd, 2021, when he urged the Secretary of State of Georgia to, quote, find 11,780 votes and declare him the winner of that state?
No, I've heard about it through clips, but no, Senator, I've not heard it.
What was your reaction to President Trump making that call?
I would have to listen to the tape, Senator.
Oh, God.
Well, the
Everyone in
quote that I
America has
give
heard
you
that.
is exact. He said to the Georgia Secretary of State, find 11,780 votes.
Do you have the entire context of that call? I feel like it was much longer than that and may have been taken out of
It
context.
was an hour long.
Out of context.
You can certainly listen to it. I hope you will. Every American should.
The
As a former
context makes it
prosecutor,
worse.
are you not concerned that the President of the United States called a state election official and asked them to find enough votes to change the results of the election?
Senator, I have not listened to the hour-long conversation, but it's my understanding that is not what he asked him to do.
Oh, my God.
You need
That
to
is
listen to
exactly, it's exactly what he asked him to do.
I mean, that is.
And then he said if Trump told him that if he doesn't go along with it, he might be committing a crime and get in trouble for not finding those 11,870
Oh, yeah, you
votes.
want to hear it in the full context? Yeah, please play the additional threats that Trump leveled against these local election officials or state election officials. Oh, it might be out of context. Oh, you don't know enough. You haven't heard anything to comment on Trump saying, your boss saying, find me 11,080 votes, 11,780 votes, but you heard enough about it to know that it might be out of context. You know enough about it that it was an hour-long conversation. You seemingly know a lot about this conversation that you're not talking about. This is not about her competency or her experience. It's her lack of spine and her willingness to bend a knee to Donald Trump.
And this, and again, she also was asked about whether what she thought about Trump saying that the rioters on January 6th were patriots. And again, she said, I'm not familiar with that statement. I mean, all this stuff is just totally.
Potentially, she's not familiar with a lot of material that she really needs to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, not familiar with the stuff, the crazy things that her boss has said, that the folks that attacked the police officers, the Capitol police officers in D.C. are patriots, that they're hostages. Oh, I haven't heard that.
She represented him in his second impeachment.
She has no idea what you're talking about. That's a great point. Folks, you're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. That is Jess P.S. with the great points. Matt Rothschild joining me today as well. You see you folks lining up on the phones and the text, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Coming back with your comments, plus a couple more senators talking to Pam Bondi.
Not to put too fine a point on it, say I'm the only bee in your bonnet, make a little birdhouse in your soul.
30 seconds. Ten.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75 Florida, former Florida AG Pam Bondi speaking to the Senate Judiciary Committee today. Her nomination to be the United States Attorney General. I just got to say, I love the Guns N' Roses. I'm wearing my Guns N' Roses shirt right now, and that song, Rocket Queen. I mean, literally, that song's almost 40 years old. I mean, you got to be kidding. Oh, I know. It's like 38-year-old. Come on. Just a little dating. I know, Matt, sometimes we feel old. When I think about that, I mean, I'm feeling really old. 855-752-4842. Texters, callers always get priority. Mark, you've been the most patient. Welcome to the show, man. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks. And I think I saw something that refreshed in my memory. I looked at today. Pam Bondi had some kind of forgiveness of Trump over the whole Trump U thing, and she got $25,000 contributed to a campaign. And I can't help but think, that what the ancients thought of, judges taking bribes, accepting bribes. That
it wasn't a bribe. It was a donation to her campaign. It was 15 or 25. I think, yeah, you're right. It might be 25,000. Donald Trump also gave it illegally. He was fined, I think, a 10% fee on top of that. May have been from one of his charities. Anyway, so she declined to get in on the action, and in doing so, left out the citizens of Florida from collecting from the fraud from Trump University.
And I can't think about how long is it going to be before we start referring to Trump, and he'll insist on being referred to the presidency in the 18th century the moniker of His Excellency the President of the United States, or rather than obedience to Donald Trump, it's going to obeisance to Donald Trump, and we're going to grovel down before him like they do in the old Oriental court.
Come on, man. I don't grovel to anybody. I mean, President Fraudster, President Rapester, sure, we can go down that road. And anyone who has a problem with me saying those things, well, maybe shouldn't vote for a fraudster or a rapist. Yeah, I said it. 855-752-4842. Jack from the Mac, you're next. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Well, thanks for taking my call. Just an observation on my hearing, some of the hearings today. It seems that Bondi was asked specifically, if President Trump tells you to do something illegal, will you say, no, I can't do that, like Billy Barr did before you, and I can't remember Barr's predecessor, but he was also fired for doing the same thing, saying, no, I can't do that, it's illegal. Will you do that? And guess what answer she gave? None.
I won't answer a hypothetical, Jack. Thanks for the call. A lot of concerns about hypotheticals, and I didn't hear that, and maybe it's out of context, and those kinds of responses. Again, and thanks, Jack. Totally unacceptable.
Right, but the problem,
general.
Right, the problem I have though with that is after the U.S. Supreme Court decision, if Trump tells her to do something, it's by the fact that he told her to do it, it's legal. Yeah. That's the crazy universe we're living in right now.
Yeah, and that is, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. This is what some of us wanted. Less than 50% of the voters wanted this, and we're going to find out. 855-752-4842. Mark from Sussex, he texted in. He's prolific here today. He says, just an embarrassment for Democrats the last 2 days. Shameful. He goes on to say that Bondi kicked butt today. And also, can always tell when Dom gets heated. Speed up and talk louder. So simple to read him. Mark, yes, I am simple to read, man. When I get fired up, I get loud and I talk fast. Yeah, amazing. You don't have to fake it with me, Mark. Shameful. The criticisms of folks like Mark and the conservatives on how the Democrats have been addressing, and specifically what we've dived into, the Pete Hegseth yesterday, Pam Bondi. We have some more cuts from there today. Matt, do you think that the Democrats conversations and inquiries to these nominations have been shameful?
I wouldn't say shameful. I wish they were stronger, though. I mean, I got to agree there with Mark that, Durbin was kind of gentlemanly lawyer-like in his approach. White House, I saw a little bit. I thought he was going to be a little stronger. He sounded like he was going to be tougher, and it wasn't, that strong. Hirona, I thought, was strong. She probably was the strongest and most showed the most appropriate disdain. That's what I wanted. Just, enough of you're not answering my questions. I'm not buying it for a minute. I got that attitude from her, and I like that about it. And I wanted more of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's the upper chamber. It's the more distinguished chamber. So they try to ease up a bit. Let's squeeze in Senator Hirono if we can, please. Let's play the one cut.
Next segment,
Come
man.
on, man. We got a minute. You kidding me?
All right, fine.
Thank you.
I do have questions and concerns about potential conflicts of interest, about whether you will keep DOJ's law enforcement responsibilities independent of the president's political whims, and about whether you will let facts and evidence guide your decisions. So let's start with the importance of facts, which you say is important. Ms. Bondi, we want an attorney general who bases decisions on facts. So I want to ask you a factual question. Who won the 2020 presidential election?
Joe Biden is the president of the United States.
What a wimp out.
Ms. Bondi, you know that there is a difference between acknowledging it and, I can say that Donald Trump won the 2024 election. I may not like it, but I can say it. You cannot say who won the 2020 presidential election.
She can't say it. She won't say
disturbing.
It is disturbing, and she should be disqualified for the role. She was out there as an election denier, and now she's going to be the Attorney General of the United States. Folks, stick around. Come back with us. More on the Adam Schiff, Senator Schiff, also asking questions of Pam Bondi. Your calls, your text, 855-752-4842.
Hey, I can't remember when it happened.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Jess PS on the board, trying to keep me on track, doing the best she can. Thank you, Jess.
Trying, man.
Matt Rothschild at the desk as well. You folks on the lines, 855-75-Civic. The original Claire, she texts in, hey, Dom, Senator Hirona rocks. I was very impressed. Yes, she is lighting it up. Steve chimes in, the lineup for musicians at the inauguration, I definitely won't be watching. Is super Confederate to me. Agree? Question mark. Well, Steve, perhaps we'll get there as well. We have a little bit more from the testimony today. Testimony conversations. The Senate Judiciary Committee grilling Pam Bondi, Trump's pick to be the Attorney General. Our final cut of the day, Senator Adam Schiff, Donald Trump's favorite. Shifty Schiff, all the names. Schiff.
One of the enemies from within.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see if Pam Bondi comes after Adam Schiff. I mean, this is some intrigue going on here. If you think that the J6 committee and these efforts by the Democrats to somehow, some way, in the only way they can outside of the judiciary to hold these folks accountable for their attempt to overthrow the government. Call it what you want. That's what I call it. You could call it seditious conspiracy. You call it treason. But we all can agree that he got away with it. Here is Adam Schiff speaking hard to Bondi, questioning the hard truths to the president. Let's play cut 3, please.
My questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Can you say that? Do you have the independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas, the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election? Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't do it. I won't play politics with any ongoing investigation,
so let me ask you another,
like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo.
If you can't answer the question, let me ask you a different, what should be a simple truth, not a hard one. Was there massive fraud affecting the result of the 2020 election, yes or no?
Senator, I'm glad you asked that question. If you'll let me answer what I saw in Pennsylvania.
No, I asked a simple question about massive fraud.
I can only tell you what I saw in Pennsylvania.
I know you want to answer a different question, but my question is, can you tell us whether there was massive fraud affecting the results of the 2020 election, yes or no? Was there or was there not?
I can tell you what I saw when I went as an advocate to the campaign.
That's not my question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president.
Easy truths sometimes aren't so easy. Truth is sometimes the hardest thing to swallow. That's why a lot of folks like to eat up the lies. I'm talking to you, Mega. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, she wouldn't answer his questions. She can't, to this day admit that Trump lost fair and square against Joe Biden. She keeps mentioning Pennsylvania. I still haven't heard the specifics. I wish she had gotten time to talk about what those specifics were, but I didn't get. I don't think she's got any, but she keeps throwing it out there. So it's kind of horrifying to me that the next Attorney General of the United States can't just admit, that the sky is blue and 2 + 2 is 4.
The Washington Post reporting, while discussing her work in Pennsylvania, Bondi seemed to make a point to emphasize that she was serving as an advocate for Trump. Interesting. Quote, what I can tell you is what I saw firsthand when I went to Pennsylvania as an advocate for the campaign. I was an advocate for the campaign, and I was on the ground in Pennsylvania, and I saw many things there. Many things.
What are those things?
There was stuff and things and issues and lots of things that I can't articulate for some reason. Lots of things.
In 60 court cases that they lost.
60 plus court cases that they lost. A recount that happened right here in the state of Wisconsin, Dane County, Milwaukee County. The result of that recount in Milwaukee anyway, Trump got less votes. You know what I mean? So this is and I wonder historically, Matt, how this is going to play out. We talked about Reagan earlier and the Iran-Contra, and some folk, or not Iran, the Iranian hostages in the Carter and Reagan election. A lot of folks apparently not aware of those things. The Iran-Contra issue, as you talked about earlier. A lot of folks not aware of that, or even if there's some story out there, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I mean, this is the active as we're listening to it, the rewriting of history by these folks that Donald Trump is going to put into these positions of power. They're doing it actively. Hell, Chuck Grassley started out by rewriting history. Matt,
Right.
is it?
It's not going to work ultimately, though. Historians are going to say this is the worst guy who was ever president of the United States, that he was committing insurrection or treason against our democracy. And that's why Jack Smith did us all a service by publishing that report. In one sense, he was trying to defend what he did. In another sense, I think he was just laying it out for future historians. When you're looking back at this period 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, what happened actually? Because there's all this smoke about, oh, there was nothing there. There was a fire there. And Jack Smith was the one who was, pointing to it. And, I just read that report. I think he did a great job in pointing out all the crimes that Trump could have been convicted of if it weren't for the U.S. Supreme Court.
50 years or 100 years from now, when our descendants are rummaging through the burning rubble of our democracy, they'll find that Donald Trump did something way back in the day to no consequence. We'll get to that as well. Folks, your calls are welcome right now, 855-752-4842. Pam Bondi, not about her competence, not about her experience. It's about her undying loyalty to the Orange Man. Very concerning. L.A. Tom, you are up. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we even have civics or history to actually look back at in the future, since we didn't have civics since Reagan. It's just, I'm so, Dominic, I don't know if it's these fires or what that get my emotions going so much, but the thing is, I am so sick of Republicans pushing back on things, and Democrats don't. Even our commentators, Matt, I'm sorry, like you, Dr. Craig, nobody pushes back. Everyone tries to be sensible and let's look at this. No, and what did the Democrats do wrong? We never, ever, right now.
Okay, hang on, Matt. Let me ask you. We played some of the sound of the senators, and I thought between yesterday and today, Mazie Hirono, the senator from Hawaii, I thought Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth, Dick Durbin did a pretty decent job, and he was pretty calm about it. Wasn't freaking out, wasn't yelling, wasn't swearing. But do you think that the folks that are asking the questions of these nominations are doing a good job?
I mean, I thought Durbin could have been tougher. I wanted him to be tougher. I wanted White House even to be tougher. I don't know why L.A. Tom took a stray shot at me. I've been criticizing the Democrats for not being tougher here.
L.A. Tom, come on, man. What do you say? Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why is because of the fact that Joe Biden has been working on this deal for a year and a half in terms of his issue that was happening. Netanyahu is the one that's been dragging his feet this whole time until Trump became, the winner. These people in Michigan and other places, and I'll say the far left, are the ones that actually lost us this election.
Oh, I think that's crazy.
Gaza thing.
That's crazy.
I don't. But the thing that I will say this: why are the Democrats not on fire right now about the idea that they may not put the flags at half-mast for Jimmy Carter? This is something that should just be something that, if this happened on the Republican side, where Ronald Reagan, they weren't going to put the flags at half-mast for him for 30 days. Oh, my God, it would be the end of the world.
Well, yes, Tom, but those were the old days, man, and this is the new day, and I'm not sure that's the hill that people want to die on. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, there are more things to be outraged about than that issue. But look at the far left did not cost Kamala Harris the election here. The issue in Gaza did not cost the election. Maybe in Michigan it hurt her. But I'm not going to fault any Palestinian American who didn't vote for Kamala Harris because their aunts and uncles or nieces and nephews were being slaughtered in Gaza. I'm not going to blame them for not voting for Kamala Harris. Look, if I was one of them, I might not have voted for Kamala Harris either.
And the response, of course, then is, well, what, you're going to vote for Donald Trump? Is that going to help out your Palestinian relations anymore? Again, we're not personally involved in, war and hostage taking and death and destruction and the murder of women and children. Always bad. There's no upside to that. But we run elections. We live in a political world, and those things are interpreted by the electorate, and they make those decisions. And we'll see if it ends up being better or worse in the next 4 years. I mean, elections have consequences, as they say, Matt. 855-752-4842. Nick from Madison, you're up. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, thanks for getting me. Sorry, I just finished Doritos, so swallowing. But,
Cottonmouth? Come on, man, take a swig. You're fine. What are your thoughts?
No, it's all good, man. But no, what I wanted to say was, and this is what I said to Maggie earlier in the day, is that Donald Trump is a horrible president. Kamala Harris would be a horrible president. This is the best we can do? Seriously? This is the best we can do? This is the best we have to offer?
Well, look, I wouldn't make any analogy between Trump and Kamala Harris. Let me stand up for Kamala Harris for a second, because I thought she ran a real classy, dignified campaign. She worked her tail off. She beat the living crap out of Donald Trump during that debate. Anyone who watched it has got to conclude that, Trump just got demolished there. She did come out with some issues that would help people in the working class, including, trying to get at the price gouging at the supermarket and building new homes for people because we have a housing crisis. She acknowledged that. I thought she ran an admirable campaign. I would have changed some things in hindsight, but hindsight's, 2020. So I'm not going to stand here and listen to Nick, trash Kamala Harris.
No question. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And if you look at Kamala Harris's resume as it pertains to public service, coming up in California, prosecutor or attorney general of California, becoming a senator from California, becoming a vice president, and eventually a presidential nominee. Those things don't just happen. Circumstantially, certainly, Biden could have got out. I mean, this thing could have been entirely different if Joe Biden was stuck to his guns and became the bridge that he said he was going to be. And unfortunately, he decided he was not only the bridge, he was going to be the highway after the bridge, and that ship wasn't sailing, man. And I don't care what Biden says, he would not have won, not coming off of that debate. So, Annie from Watertown, she texts in, leading reason folks didn't vote, Gaza. A lot of folks didn't vote, Matt. I think that was a big disappointment. Again, considering the stakes in this election. Now, Annie thinks that one of those reasons was because of the Gaza situation. Perhaps that was. Now, was it to that percentage? I don't know if I would agree with that statistic. But at the end of the day, man, millions of people stayed home, Matt.
Yeah, they stayed home. Maybe some stayed home because of Gaza. But if you look in the polls on issues, Gaza was down at like 14% as the most important issue, somewhere in that range. Whereas the economy, inflation, those were at the top. Immigration was high too. Those were the two biggest issues. So I got to think people didn't think the Democrats had enough answers on the big issues that were affecting their lives or that they were scared about.
And they believed what the Republicans were selling them. Let's just be honest about it. Donald Trump is a hell of a spokesman. He is a hell of a grifter, and he convinced folks. And now we'll see. Are they going to hold Donald Trump's feet to the fire? Is Donald Trump going to do in the very first day? Is the Ukraine war going to end now? Now that this is happening, is Russia pulling back out of Ukraine? What happens to the price of eggs? Where's inflation? Inflation is, we're not going to maybe get those interest rate cuts from the Fed if the economy stays where it's at and the inflation rate stays where it's at and slightly increasing. If that's going to be on Donald Trump, will he get the blame or the credit? Well, he certainly should. Come back with us one final segment, 855-752-4842.
30 seconds.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, final segment of the day. If you got something to say, feel free to hit us up, 855-752-4842, 855-757. We've been trying to, and sometimes I forget, and
every time, Dom.
It's got to be on the wall. It's got to be on the board. It's got to be right in front of me all the time. Tell us something good. We want to end the show on a high note, something positive. Tell us something good. I know, Jess, you and Matt were scheming behind my back today. So what's the status?
Well, I asked for some poetry because Matt has just wonderful collections of poetry. He's curated just this wonderful library of poetry that can help us to find some wisdom in the world and find some peace.
You know, I did when I was editor at the Progressive Week. One of the favorite things I did was publish one original poem a month. And so Jody Vandermolen and I would look at the manuscripts, and we'd have, 30. We wouldn't say what the poet's name was because we wanted to be blind in reading it and not be influenced. Oh, this person's got a name, that person doesn't. And it was really rewarding just to pick an original poem every month, especially from someone who we didn't know before or didn't have a big reputation, and just publish that. Although we were able to get some great poets in there like Martina Spada and others as well. And June Jordan wrote for us too. So anyway, poetry has been a love of mine. Birds are a long-standing love of mine, and we have a poem here by the great poet Wendell Berry, who's got birds in this poem too, and he talks about what do you do when all hell's breaking loose and the world's going to hell in a handbasket. So here's Wendell Berry with a beautiful baritone voice.
The peace of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
I just love that poem. It was a very famous poem. He wrote it during the Vietnam War when bombs were falling all over Vietnam. And he couldn't stay. He was a anti-Vietnam War protester. He's about 90 years old now, Kentucky farmer, environmental activist, just a tremendous individual, still writing short stories and poems and novels.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's pretty, isn't it? I mean, nature really is a great place for solace in crazy times. And it's for your health too. Even just going out and taking a walk for 10 minutes a day is supposed to be really good for your health. And if you can go into the woods or go into, Wisconsin's got great parks. Milwaukee's got great city parks. We've got great state parks and county parks in this state. And if you can just find any time just to go out there, see a wood duck like he's talking about, or a heron. Most of them are gone south now, but there's still some. I'm out there feeding the woodpeckers every day, and those guys give me some pleasure too. So, I just encourage people to enjoy nature, enjoy poetry, enjoy art and music like you do, Dom. I mean, there are ways to stay healthy and invigorated and off screen, because if you're at CNN.com or NewYorkTimes.com all day long, or if you're watching cable news, God forbid, it can get pretty depressing.
Well, a lot of my music's angry music, Matt. So I'm not sure that's really what we're trying to get to. But I do think, and it was a beautiful poem, and thank you for sharing that and putting that out there. And being in nature. And I grew up out in the country, and I think sometimes I take it for granted. When I was out in the country, I always wanted to be in the city. You know what I mean? And now we're in the city, and I've really come back around to the nature and going out for the walks and enjoying the peace and the quiet, and to shut everything out and to just listen and be present for a moment and hear the different sounds going on around. And if you're in the city parks, there's certainly going to be some cars in the background, but you also have the water and the birds and the wind and the leaves and all those things. And I think it is important because we're going to have, times in our lives, and maybe some of those are coming up again where we have, difficult, emotional, mental kind of things going on, and how to process and what everything means. And, above and beyond the everyday kind of challenges that we have, these external things. And one of the things I've found to be helpful is to focus on the things that you can control. We talk about a lot of these issues on politics, and none of these things are under our control. We're reporting on what happened, but we cannot control those things. And if we try to put our will into changing issues and things in the world that we cannot actually change and control, it gets really frustrating. So it's not about making the change. It's about making the change that you can make, because some things you can't do alone. Some things take a little more effort. Some things take a village, take a team, take a world. But you can control your actions. You can control how you think. You control the words that come out of your mouth. And sometimes it's a good exercise to maintain a little clarity in those regards. Final thoughts, Matt.
Yeah, I just think, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to appreciate the people around us, our families, our friends. They can get us through this period. We can get through this period together. We can't get through it alone. And we can't obsess about the things, as you say, we can't control.
All right. Jess, any final thoughts today?
Ditto.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you, Matt Rothschild. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Jess P.S. on the board, trying to keep me in line. All you can do is try. Thank you to our fair audience. Stick around. Pete Schwab, Nightlight, coming up next. We will be back tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.